Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Bandofla. If this is the first time you've landed on our podcast, then there's a special welcome for you. Feel free to check out the many other podcast episodes that we have across the different series that we've managed to record. For our regulars, welcome back to another show. My name is Febzi Hussein, and you're listening to Bandofla. Right, before we get on to covering the subjects that I want to touch on, in our last episode, I mentioned the phrase Abazurnek Bul Kafes, and I asked listeners if they knew what it was. And we've had quite a few people contact the podcast to say, what are you talking about? So I'm going to put listeners out of your misery. Anyone who can speak Arabic will know what this means. So Abazurnek Bul Kafes means you can't keep a fart in a cage. Yep, I kid you not. All right, so let's get, now that we've got the light-hearted stuff out of the way, we'll be covering some quite serious matters on Bandofla, starting off with the fact that this week there's been a very important day in our calendar. The Holocaust is rightly remembered as one of the most horrific acts of genocide, where reportedly 6 million Jews were killed by the Nazis. And the Nazis did not stop their killing with the Jews, as they targeted socialists, communists, people with disabilities, the LGBT plus community, Gypsy, Roma travelers, and many more. Holocaust Memorial Day is a day we should all mark in our calendars as we collectively say never again. And I hope many of our listeners were able to light a candle at 8 p.m. on the 27th of January to remember all Holocaust victims. We know there are episodes before and after this where mass killings of civilians have taken place purely on the basis of their nationality or religion. The attack on Bosnian Muslims in Srebrenica, the Rwandan genocide, and the murder of up to 10 million Congolese under the orders of King Leopold II. The Congolese massacres were even condemned by other colonial powers at the end of the First World War. And then there is the issue of the African slavery genocide, where estimated deaths are believed to be between 17 million, which is a UN figure, and 60 million. So let's take a moment to quietly reflect on this. Okay, I always make a point on Bandofla of saying that peace and love will always win the day. Being hateful has an awful effect on the mind, body, and soul. It eats into you, and it's so much nicer for everyone to be nice, to be polite, to be respectful. It doesn't cost anything to be nice, right? I'm recording this episode from the beautiful island of Malta. For those of you watching on YouTube, I've managed to have a good dose of vitamin D. So I feel so much better for for that. Malta reminds me of Cyprus in many respects. Maybe it's not so developed or as developed. The people there are generally warm and hospitable. There's also an amazing vegan eatery called Balance Bowl, which I promised I would plug. And I've plugged Balance Bowl in previous episodes when we covered veganery last year. The owners of Balance Bowl said they would play this podcast on a loop if I mentioned them a couple of times. So definitely I thought I'd be up for that. It seems the right thing to do, like I said, because we are still in veganery and more people are giving veganism a go. I've certainly embraced the vegan lifestyle here in Malta, and the food served by Balance Bowl has been, fabulous, really awesome. Their kebabs and hot dogs, all plant-based, were really, really tasty. So, quick shout out. I will say hello to Phyllis, Evelina, Julia, Dora, Eric, Egil, and Marta, who's the manager. They all deserve a special Balance Bowl vegan shout. I don't think it takes a genius to work out that once the resources of the world become more scarce, the lifestyle of being vegan might not necessarily be a lifestyle choice. So there's my Fevzi Nostradamus prediction for you. Here on Bandofla, we like to promote tolerance, dignity, and respect. Hate crime is an awful thing. Like I touched on at the beginning, it's always better to love than to hate. When it comes to the issue of hate crimes against women, better known as misogyny, this is a problem that has not improved in wider society. In fact, all the indicators appear to lend itself to the problem getting significantly worse. In the UK, it's not helped by the fact that the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, refuses to give legal status to misogyny as being a hate crime, even though a number of police forces do actually include misogyny as a hate crime. The concept of young men being radicalized to hate women is something that is being talked about more and more. And one author has written a book on this. Her name is Laura Bates. We've also seen the growth of the incel movement. A reminder to listeners about what incel means. According to Google, if someone is incel, it means they are a member of an online community of young men who consider themselves unable to attract women sexually, typically associated with views that are hostile towards women and men who are sexually active. The recent Plymouth shootings highlighted the incel cult, and for many people, this was the first time they heard of this word, and it really does look like a dark cult, and I think the authorities need to invest resources to look into this more so women can be protected. Here in Malta, Bandofla recently reported on the shocking murder of Paulina Demska by the Independence Gardens area in the St. Julian's district. The crime really shocked the small island of Malta and understandably devastated her family back in Poland. Bandofla understands that the police have refused to classify the murder as a femicide, much to the anger of many women on the island. The trial of the suspect has now started, and in our humble opinion, there are many lessons to be learned from what we've seen here with this case. Firstly, the authorities in Malta must prioritize addressing some of the cultural issues where some men simply have a terrible lack of respect for women. I was speaking to some of the younger women on the island, and they told Bandofla that they regularly feel stared at, and in some cases they are also groped. There is also a responsibility of the media. Well, we've seen some of the reporting on this case, and I have to say, I've read some of the news stories, and it's been far too graphic, which, to be frank, is not only unnecessary, but it also is deeply insensitive for Paulina's family. We know these details will more than likely come out during the court case, but journalistic etiquette needs to be in place for awful crimes of this nature. I went to the spot where Paulina was murdered. There is a cat sanctuary there. As I said, it's called Independence Gardens. And you can see that the cats are completely safe. And there are many local people who go to feed the cats and to make sure their resting areas are clean and dry. It's really an amazing area. This is what Paulina was doing that day early in the new year. We lit some candles and we read the messages of love towards Paulina. It's clear that she will be missed by many, many people. The trial has now started, and we hope to see justice being done for the Demska family and her friends. So again, sticking to Malta, while I was out there, I managed to go on a couple of heritage walks with my younger sister, Phyllis. I can't remember the name of the walk, but there were some amazing caves that were thousands of years old. One was a burial cave, others were, I think, some kind of prisons, but it was incredible how small they were. We also came across the oldest tree in Malta, which is said to be over 3,000 years old, and it's still bearing fruit. It's a carob tree. I'll post some pictures of the tree on the Bandofla Twitter page, and these are definitely worth a look if you get a chance. So I'm going to stick to the Mediterranean region and head over to the east, as the elections have taken place on the lovely island of Cyprus, North Cyprus to be precise. Some of you will recall the last elections that took place. They were for the presidential elections, and Ersin Tatar eventually won the second round. This time the MPs have been on the ballot papers, and as many people predicted, the outcome was again very close. And there's been no overall winner as things stand at the moment. So a coalition will now be formed, although the ruling party, UBP, will have the first chance to form this, and rumours, political commentators believe that they will do that with DP, who they were in government with previously. I will be connecting with at least one prominent political speaker, and fingers crossed, I hope to have a UK parliamentarian also to touch on the elections and to give their reactions. Political commentator and policy expert Dr. Errol Kaimak has confirmed his availability. He's a great friend of this podcast and has previously been on the show where he gave his thoughts on the last election. So in other news, I want to touch on football. To be precise, the African Nations Cup, which is coming to an end. This is undoubtedly one of the most prestigious football tournaments in the world. I don't need to dress this up in any other way. Yet it looks as though FIFA and major media outlets do not give this tournament the respect that it deserves. Ian Wright, the former Arsenal and Crystal Palace legend, touched on this recently ahead of the tournament starting, and rightly said, in my view, that you don't get none of this nonsense when the World Cup or European Championships are on. He added, what makes a journalist think that an African player is less enthusiastic to pull on his or her national jersey, I should say, than his or her European counterparts? I think that's a really good point that Ian Wright makes. And that has created quite a lot of debate on this. When the European Championships were on, Gareth Southgate had the benefit of his squad being together for a good 3 to 4 weeks ahead of his first game. For the African countries, this vital period was only a week or so long. I recall there were still African players playing in the Premier League literally just a week or so before the African Nations was due to start. There must be equality in sport. This inequality counts as structural racism in my book, and dare I say it, institutional racism comes into play here. Hopefully, with more and more people highlighting this, some degree of equity will come to all who play in high-level international football competitions, irrespective of the continent represented.